So last time out in the woods, we finished cutting all these 1x6s. We've got a nice little pile here. Fairly straight. A little bit rough, but that's okay. And we got some 2x6s ready to go. And we're going to use this to make a walkway around my shop. So we have a little look out here. See, it's kind of rough. I'm going to fill this in with a nice little wooden walkway. That's for in a little bit once we get the siding done. Right now, we got our saw left here from last time. We made about 4 dozen 1x6s. And this lovely little thing here was giving us issues. I diagnosed it. There's a bad fuel vent. I got one ordered and we'll change that out later on. Should be here by the end of this week. And we got this big saw here from last trip that we're going to sharpen up there right now. So I'll just clear off my bench a bit to give us a little room to work. And I'll show you how I sharpen my chains for ripping. So just give me a second here. Oh, I haven't cleaned it up yet. Take the rig off. Clean the saw up a little bit. I flipped it in front so I can see what I'm doing. Go. Something like that. Sorry guys, I'm kind of new to this old camera thing. So this is not a Grandberg. It's some Chinese knockoff and it's fairly cheap. The metal's been bending a bit. General low quality is not 100% straight, but it does a fair enough job. Price difference, this was like $100 on Grandberg, I believe it's over 500. This is Canadian too, so it's quite a difference here. And for the amount I'm doing with it, it does just fine. So I'm going to loosen the rails up a little bit so we can get in there to take the bolts off the bottom. Just tighten this up so it doesn't whack in the head. All the bolts on this are all the standard sizes that'll work on your scrunch strip. Actually, this is a number 13mm. Use a socket, it's just a hell of a lot easier. But you can use a scrunch if you're in a big pinch. Tighten this up a little bit more, make it easier to put back on next time. Fairly simple. Once you get the bottom pieces loosened off, you can just slide it right off your car. Obviously, I don't have a slack off. There we go. A little bit more. There we go. And we got a lovely rig. If you're curious, this one here is a 24-inch bar, and I believe this rig can go up to 32 inches. For the type of trees I have around here, this does just fine. Sometimes I gotta fuck around a little bit just to make it work. You know, the smaller the bar you use when you're building, the better off you'll be. We got a lovely vise here. You can sharpen your chains without a vise. It just makes it a lot easier. And you can get all kinds of Dremel tools and all that. I just use standard files. There we go, nice and tight. I should have a file here somewhere. So this chain, this is an Arctic chain. The gauge is a 050. It's a 3/8. It was designed specifically as a ripping chain. You can take pretty much any semi-chisel chain and turn it into a decent ripping chain. It's just the angles of the cutters that makes all the difference. There we go. This pair's a little better. I'm gonna put some gloves on. I'd rather not cut my fingers. So you see here it's fairly loose, which is just nice for working. But when you're ripping a chain, you want to get it as tight as possible. Obviously there's people out there can do this a lot better. Mr. Bucking comes to mind. A little tight. There we go, nice and tight. Obviously you don't want to run your saw like this. You'll damage your bar, you'll damage the chain. But for sharpening it, you don't want the tooth to move around. So I don't know if you can see here. Let's get you a little closer. So the pitch I use, if you look across the tube, and something like this, a normal tube will be sharpened about here, about 30 degrees. When I'm doing ripping chains, I want them about here, anywhere between 5 and 10 degrees. That's what I found that works well for me. And if we get down a little bit like this, oops. Here we go. This is level. I also give it just a touch up. Probably, again, like 2-3 degrees up. I don't know why. I've tried a couple different angles. And that just seems to work well for ripping. So, now we're just going to go at it. It's a fairly decent file, so it should be alright here. I don't really count my strokes. I just watch the toot, and you'll feel it in the file. There we go, all sharp. Now we're just going to check our rakers real quick. Make sure it should be good from last time. If not, we'll file them down a little bit. So I have a gauge here. This one's for 25 tau. It's a fairly basic Oregon gauge. But 25 tau is nowhere near enough for ripping. So I put them on like here, put across, I use my finger, and if I can feel the raker, I'll file down a little bit. That gets me somewhere around 40 to 45 tau, which so far, this seems to work just about right for this chain on this saw. Just going to check a few here. Sometimes I'm going to file them down and not exactly even. I did a decent job with this chain, so we'll leave those rakers as is. Next step. As you're working with a saw, particularly ripping, it's very, very hard on the bars. The chain is running a lot, you're doing a lot of work, a lot of cutting, a lot of force is being applied to the chain. As such, you tend to wear your bars out rather quickly. So on this one here, I'm just going to pop out of the vise for a second, and we're going to take the bar and chain right off, which will allow us to clean the engine up as well. But we're just going to take this off for right now. Just going to loosen it up. Perfect. Go. Take this chain off. And we're just going to rest this chain down right here. I'll show you what we're doing. So this is your bar. And if you look along the top here, I'm not sure if I can show you on film. Something like this. So it's starting to form a little wire edge along the top here. And on the side you're cutting, you'll see it quite a bit. So this one here is not too bad at the moment. It's just enough to need a touch up. You'll notice the most back here where the chain is actually pulling. Back here you'll see it quite a bit. So we're just going to pop this in the vise and give it a quick cleanup. Let's see. There we go. Just going to get most of this dirt off the top, bottom. Alright, so we've got a standard flat file here for a chainsaw. And what we're going to do to dress this bar, we're just going to keep it 100% flat with the bar. And then we're going to work our way along the length of it. I don't know if you can pick it up there in the camera. There's a little bit of metal falling off the side and a little bit of almost like a wire. This, just get rid of the wire. And again, I'm not sure if you can pick up the camera, but you'll see the reflection of the light. And it'll show you pretty much where you've got to pick out the material. Flip this over and do the other side. You don't have to do this every time. This has been about 4 trips in the woods, I believe. So 4 truckloads of material I've made since I've done this last. Just trying to feel for a wire edge. That was all gone. We're good for next time. And with a little bit more left up here. Let's give this a quick touch. And a little more right here. Not bad. Hold that good. Then I'm just gonna get my little grease gun here, and we'll give this sprocket a quick little squirt. So again, this is a standard chainsaw tool. It's just a little grease gun. On one side of the bar, on the sprocket nose, you'll see there's a little tiny hole, and we're just going to put a little bit of grease in there. Right there. There you go. And you can see, squeeze some grease out, and that just lubricates the bearing of the sprocket nose. That'll help it last that much longer. Again, this is very, very hard work on a saw. I'm just going to take this bar and we're just going to put it to the side now. Take the filter off the saw. Clean it out if we need to. You can see it's fairly dusty. Let's pop this pre-filter off. Oh, there we go. See all the dust flying. So I'm just going to get my blow hose. Go. Just filter back together so they don't get none in the intake. It's a fairly important step to do when you're doing milling with a saw. Normally you're making big chips and there's not that much dust unless your chain is super dull. When you're milling like this, you're getting a lot of fine dust. And just the position of the saw, and if a little bit of wind is blowing, you'll suck a lot of it up your intake. Oh, it's not too bad. I don't see anything on the inside. And she was running good, so I'm not going to take it apart this time. I'm just going to put this cover back on. Take the solid side and we're going to blow all the dirt off inside. Just helps her detect any issues for the next time. And if you get too much dust that builds up inside the vents, you'll have it overshoot and burn up the piston. Or cylinder will blow something up. There we go. Saw's all cleaned up again. Next time we'll just put the bar and chain back on and put it away. It's ready to go. I don't know if you noticed when I took the bar off. When I took it off, it was like this, upside down. So for next trip, I'll roll it over again so we get even wear on both sides of the bar. Again, for doing this kind of work, it's fairly important if you want to make your tool last a while. Tend to go through chains and bars fairly quickly when you're doing milling work. If you notice your side plate, make sure the edge is nice and clean, otherwise you'll get a gap and you won't get enough oil going onto your bar. Back up. Oops. There you go. Oh, you've seen that? Let's drop her down a little bit and let you see again, a little closer. All saw work, not particularly for milling. You don't want your chain too tight, so I'm just going to roll it up until it touches the bottom of the bar. Just shade more. There you go, and that's plenty tight enough. Now this is not where your saw is going to sit. So what we're going to do, I'll zoom ahead a little bit here. Grab a saw, put the power head, I'm just going to lift it up, let it sit on the nose. We got our gap here again, so we're going to tighten it up to the same spot. Right about there, just where it touches the bar, and tighten up. There we go. Crank it down a bit. And the saws are good to go for next time. So upcoming little projects. We got the little 440 down there that we need to change the vent on. We've got all this lumber here that we previously made, and you'll see the videos of. These are 8-foot 2x6s and 1x6s that we're going to build a boardwalk around the shop. We got some lumber over here that was previously made and milled out, flattened out and cleaned up. Got some mortises cut. This is going to be a bed frame for my little toddler. He's old enough to have his own bed now. We've got over here some more lumber cut up. I don't think we can quite tell here. I got a lovely mess in my shop. All these little pieces all cut. This is going to be a helper chair, toddler helper chair. I've got a couple friends that want some of these. We got some more lumber over here drying. So this is all stickered. Most of it is 2x12s and 2x10s. I got a couple little projects in mind for that, but I'm not 100% sure yet. Obviously got to do some shop cleanup. It's a lovely mess. Not the best way to work, but time is kind of limited at the moment. So if you guys got any interest, just leave a comment down below and we'll see what we can do. Any suggestions, tips, comments, I'll take them all. Thank you, and happy milling.